boys and girls. It's time to take a look at our assignment for today. You are going to be working with 14-4. I'm going to get you started on the reteach. There's a complicated question here, and so I want to talk to you about it. But for today, remember we are looking at how to solve for the area using multiplication. And if they don't happen to have the grid available for you to check your work and notice how many squares are in the figure, then you can use multiplication. And when we use multiplication, we look at the length and we multiply it by the width. So we have 5 rows and we have 8 squares in each row. So if you notice here, they've used multiplication to show their work, and they've shown the square feet. In this case, it's square feet to show how many square units are in this figure. Now, you'll notice on this particular figure, they've actually have 2 different rectangular figures, one being a square and one being a, for example, one being a rectangle. So what they did was they broke it apart and they used their length and their width here to help them solve for this particular part of that figure. So I know the length, I know the width. So for this figure, I know that this is going to be 16 square meters. Now, I also know the length and the width for that rectangular part of my figure. And so I can take 4 rows with 10 squares in each row, and this is going to give me 40 square meters. Now, if you noticed, it asked for the entire figure. So now that I've broken this up into 2 separate figures, now I can take the square meters from one of the figures and the other square meters from the other figure, and now I can put them together to combine the total square meters for each of these. So I know that 40 square meters and 16 square meters, 10 and 10 is 50, or 40 and 10 is 50, 6 and 0 is 6. I have 50 square meters in this figure. Now, if we take a look at the first one, it's fairly basic. We know we have 2 rows. We know we have 9 in each row. So we're measuring the length and the width. And when we measure the length and the width, we are going to get 18 square, don't forget the square, and we're measuring in the unit of meters. So I'm just going to place this down here on my line. I have the length, I have the width, and sometimes people remember they're interchangeable because we know that our order property tells us that we can switch the factors and the product will be the same. So whether you believe that this is the length or this is the length or this is the width and this is the width, it's not going to change the idea behind it. We are still going to have 18 square in this particular figure. So we know that we have 18 square meters. Now this one's a little more difficult because we have to take and partition or break apart some of these figures here. Now actually, what might be easier to do is break it apart here since I have a length and the width here. So I have a length and a width. I have 6 rows. So actually, I think I might change that just to keep it consistent with what we've been talking about. I have 6 rows. I know I have 4 squares in each row since this is so short, and that's going to give me 24 square meters. That's for this particular rectangle. Now, for this rectangle right here, I know that I have 10 rows and I have 4 in each row. and 10 times 4 is 40. And so for this particular part of my rectangle, I am going to have 40 square meters. Now what I just have left is this little partition piece right here. Now, what's tricky about this is I don't know this part right here, but I can figure it out. And the way that I would figure it out would be if I have 10 as my length, this is going to be 10 here. Does everybody see that? That whole line right here is 10. But if you notice, right here is another 10. And if I were to take this 6 meters and add on 4 more right here where I partitioned this would also be 4 from here to here. So this is another 10 rows, or excuse me, 4 rows with 10 in each row. And that's also going to give me 40 square meters. So now I'm going to take the smaller and I'm going to add the larger rectangular to make the whole figure itself. And so I'm going to add another 24. So I'm adding 40 square meters from this rectangle, 40 square meters from this rectangle, and 24 from this rectangle. And together 40 and 40 is 80. And add 24 more. 20 and 80 is 100. And 4 more will make 104 square meters. And for number 3, if you have run out of grid paper, you are always welcome to use lined paper. So I pulled out a piece of lined paper here to demonstrate for you. Number 3. So number 3 says the area of a rectangle is 56 square inches. The width of the rectangle is 7 inches. What is the length? So we're having to kind of think backwards here as to what the length is going to be. They gave us the width, so I'm going to use the 7. So from line to line, I'm using that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm using that line paper as my rows. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. Now, to get 56, I need to count by 7s to be able to get to 56. So I've got my width. I'm missing my length, but I know that my area is 56 square inches. Now, you could also use, you also have in your little toolkit, you also have your square tiles. So if you wanted to use your square tiles first, you could always use those first to help you and take 56 square tiles and put them into 7 rows and find out how many squares would be in each row. So I have 7, 14, 21, 28, that's going to be 35 because I have 7 rows with 5 in each row so far. 42 because I'm adding another group of 7. 49, and that's 7 times 7. And it just so happens I didn't have to extend my lines. How about that? And I have 56. So if I go ahead and fill those in, I will have 56 square inches. So that tells me that I had 7 rows with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares in each row. So my missing length, if I label this is 7 inches, and my length is 8 inches. And when I multiply those, I get the 56 square inches. So that is the front of our 14-4. If you need to use your grid paper again, or if you need to use this paper again, by all means, go ahead and do so. You also have a dry erase that you could possibly use, or you could also use your square tiles. So use any of the tools that you think you need to use. What is the area of bedroom 1? I'm just going to point out what bedroom 1 is going to be. This is going to be bedroom 1. You have your length. You have your width. What is the area of the garage? You have your length. You have your width. And so you can use your length and width to help you find your area. So if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat or email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Have a great day, and don't forget to take your DMA quiz today.